I went to the neurologist right after I started with her, and he said, sure enough, you have embouchure dystonia. I didn't really know I had a problem until I just had trouble like sustaining a note. Yeah, the odd part is that I never really had any problems with my chops up until that point. This is probably 5 years ago, maybe. I'm playing along and I'm thinking, God, does this sound any good? Is this okay? What's going, is this? And he goes, actually, we played for about half an hour. He goes, hey man, you sound like you always sounded. That was great. Am I going to be able to articulate that C? Am I going to, is the rest of the phrase going to go, okay, do I have enough air for the rest of the phrase? All those thoughts are going through my mind and I'm thinking, I never thought about anything before. So I'm thinking about all this confidence destroying thoughts that are going through my mind, as well as the technical things I'm having to think about in order to perform the stupid little phrase I'm going to try to play. It's odd how some people who don't have chop problems just can, not even try to understand what somebody might be going through. But I just found it kind of interesting. Like, man, dude, you just don't know. What you don't know, you don't know. They've all had my back, and they've really been supportive, and that's helpful. And also, it makes me comfortable showing up on a gig with any of those guys because it makes me feel at ease. And that whole thing we're talking about, confidence, lack of confidence, it gives me confidence because, okay, these guys have my back. I'm going to be able to get through this, no problem. And so then I play better. All of a sudden I can get through it and I play way better. That is my identity, and that's the toughest thing to let go. But I have been able to slowly realize that, okay, maybe it's not that important. I think it's a good headspace to be in where you can enjoy something without it being work-related.
Hey, welcome back to the show, everybody. I am so excited to dive into this guy's story. I'm so grateful to Wayne Bergeron, who introduced me to this man and told me I needed to get in touch with him for the show. This guy really doesn't really need too much of an introduction. He's one of the lead trombone players in LA, and has been on that scene for quite a while. And one fun fact of the day is that we actually were born in the same place here in Provo, Utah, where I'm currently recording the show. So that was a little fun connection we made, and Central California, Bay Area connections as well. I'm just really excited to hear this guy's story and share him with you as well. So Andy Martin, thank you so much for being here, man.
Thank you, Clark. I appreciate it.
Of course. And we were talking a little bit about it before we started recording, but the way I usually start out these episodes is that I give the floor to you and just ask you to just start wherever you want with your injury story, and we'll just go from there. So start wherever you'd like.
Oh, thanks, Clark. Yeah, as we were discussing a little bit before we started recording here, I didn't really know I had a problem until I just had trouble like sustaining a note. It would just have a little dip in the middle of a note sometimes, and it wasn't all the time, and it wasn't all registers. It was a certain register where I'd be playing, let's say, a C sharp above the staff or something like that, and I'd be holding out a whole note or something. And then it would just sound. It had a little quick little quiver. It wasn't a steady quiver. It was just a dip in the sound. And I was going, whoa, wow, what's that? So I practiced, and I worked at it, and kind of got over that problem. And meanwhile, another problem would show up, which would be, I think the next one that showed up was articulating a good articulation in the mid-fill register, somewhere around a D flat C in the staff, and just going bum 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 bum, or tuck 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 tuck, and it was like and I'm going, what is going on there? I never had problems with articulations, short, whatever, marcato. Everything's always been fine. Legato tonguing, fine. And then, yeah, the odd part is that I never really had any problems with my chops up until that point. This is probably 5 years ago, maybe. And so every time I would recover from one problem, another one would arrive, and then I'd have to get over that, and then another. It's kind of a constant thing. And I thought, well, is this normal for a brass player? Is this just age? What is this? And so then I decided I was having such problems. I just decided to go see a neurologist and see if I could get a diagnosis of some sort. And sure enough, I got diagnosed. This is after I started seeing Jan Kagras, actually, for dystonia uh, issues. And so I went to the neurologist right after I started with her, and he said, "Sure enough, you have embouchure dystonia." And the weird part of it was I could do my regular routine. I used to start on the mouthpiece and I'd buzz on the mouthpiece and it felt completely normal, completely normal. I mean, it absolutely felt like nothing, no problem. I could do it. Soon as I put the mouthpiece into the horn, put the horn to my face, it felt like I'd never played the trombone before. And that was weird. That's why I'm going, okay, this is not right. So I got diagnosed from just a neurologist who said he'd been seeing some other brass players and some orchestral players from the Philharmonic, and a lot of players are going through this, and I'm one of the few people that are actually speaking out and admitting that I have this. So um, I know I can hear in other people's playing all over the place. I can hear this person's going through what I'm going through, except I'm dealing with it, and this person is not dealing with it. So their problems get worse and worse and worse and worse. Whereas I'm dealing with it and trying to correct the signal from my brain to my chops is basically how Jan describes it. It's correcting the
Absolutely.
signal or retraining the signal. That's the correct terminology. Retraining the signal from your brain to your chops to be able to produce a sound, produce a resonant tone, good articulations, all those things that came second nature to me for my whole career. Um, I'm having to relearn, and so I'm playing with different players now, and I can tell they're going through this, and I don't want to approach them and just, tell, hey, I hear something in your sound. Do you think you should, maybe see something about this? But because that's, I'm sure they're trying to hide and get away with it and hope nobody notices. But I'm of a different mindset. I'm thinking everybody in the room can notice what I'm going through. And that's why I seek help. And it's getting better. It's getting better incrementally, slowly but surely. It's been more than 3 years I've been with studying with Jan, and it's been a slow, methodical uptick in my playing. And so now I can actually get to a point. It seems like if I'm playing a lot, here's another thing for players to think about. It seems like if I'm playing a lot, like if I'm practicing and I'm playing a lot, I'm getting through, and not taking too long of a break between phrases, I can get through everything just fine, oddly enough.
Interesting.
But when you're in a recording situation, you're sitting there and you know, you have a take where you don't play for 20 measures, and then you're coming in that 21st measure, and that's a daunting task sometimes, or has been in the past for me. Like, okay, is my note going to speak? Is my articulation going to be okay? Am I going to come in at the right volume? Am I taking in enough air? All these stupid thoughts I never thought about before. Am I breathing correctly? Which is basically one big issue. Is my breathing got turned backwards somehow. It just got turned back. And I don't know how it happened. I think maybe I was trying to keep up volume-wise with some other players in certain situations, and I overcompensated, started breathing incorrectly. That added to, or maybe started my problems, or maybe added to the problems that were going to come. And and so in a recording situation, you're stopping so much that it's hard to keep that momentum with your chops going. Okay, I can do this. I can do this. My flow is going great. My flow is going great. But then the flow gets stopped by 2 minutes or 5 minute break between your phrases that you're playing, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, am I going to be able to get through this? Whereas if I'm practicing or playing in a situation where I'm playing a lot, maybe in a big band or whatever, where there's a lot of playing going on, not a lot of resting. Um, I can pretty much get it going and keep it going. I've come to that point in my playing where I can keep it going now. I couldn't before. So it is improving. And yeah, what else can I embellish on for you, Clark? Guide me through this.
Well, yeah, no, this is, first of all, I just want to acknowledge the fact that you're so vocal about it. One of the things that struck me so heavily about my conversation with Wayne is that first of all, he doesn't sugarcoat anything, and at all, at least in my conversation with him. And he said something really interesting in his story, that is the perception in LA, at least in that scene from his perspective, was if you are going through something, to keep it quiet. And he used a phrase that still is just in my mind. He said, you don't want to be seen as damaged goods. I mean, the more I think about it, the more I see that, and you may have a different perspective on this, but that musicians are really a commodity for the industry out there, and it's a business, right? And so I'm curious, like what your perspective has been, or what. Well, let me rephrase that. What contributed to you being willing to go get this figured out and not keep it quiet, to be perceived as damaged goods or
yeah,
whoever?
I got some advice from somebody who had gone through this, so the bass trombonist, and he said, whatever you do, don't mention the word dystonia. Don't tell anybody. And that advice was probably the correct advice. But I'm kind of open about stuff, and plus I'm at a certain age where it's kind of the don't give a shit age, where I've had a great career. I've had a wonderful career. Although if I kept my mouth shut, I probably would have had a longer career. I'm still working at it, and I turned some calls down, just so I wouldn't get exposed. And yeah, that's a really good. It's a good point you're making. But I do feel that I can help some players out there that are going through this, and they can get some help.
Absolutely.
They can get some help with this, and so I'm getting help. Help is out there. It's not the end of the world to have this. It's a shitstorm for months or years. Yeah, but it's there's a way to get back from it, and I'm working at it, and I'm going to get back from it. And I just want to have fun playing really now. I kind of don't really care that much about getting on the next gig like I did 10 years ago or 20 years ago. I was always, there's always a point in your career you're saying yes to everything, and all of a sudden you start to have to say no to certain things because you're overloading yourself.
Right.
Well, your career becomes a certain level, and then all of a sudden you're getting called for everything. So then you have to say no to certain things. So I started saying no to this thing or that thing or this thing, and then my career flourished. Everything was going great. And then, 5 years ago or so, all of a sudden I started to have problems with this. And I guess I can just help some players, and I don't really. If people want to call me damaged goods, let them go ahead and call me damaged goods. That's fine. I don't.
Sure.
I don't care. And so I just want to get better, and I want other players to get better too. So that's my mindset.
And I think that's the key. And that's what I probably still could have rephrased that question better, because denial tends to be a pretty powerful emotion that people feel. I know it was for me when I started going through mine, and it can lead people to not take care of things because they don't want to be taken off a gig, or they don't want to lose this audition, or whatever the case may be. But I think that overall perspective of like, I just want to keep playing, I want to have fun playing. If you keep that in mind, it's like that momentary, like, I need to take care of this so I can reach that end goal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm sure that contributed to you wanting to go get help.
Sure.
And not just trying to like sweep it under the rug. Even if you're not necessarily mentioning it, some people will not mention it, but also not go get help.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely know what you mean. And so, yeah, I at my worst, I just long for these. I'd listen to music, and I'd listen to a brass section just go, da-da, and I just go, oh man, I want that feeling where I'm in there, everything's right in tune, everything's right there, everybody's blending, everybody's listening, and it's that glorious sound of a brass instrument or a brass group playing together. And I want that, I want that. I now I'm able to do it again. And I would like to be able to do it quite often, but the money doesn't mean that much to me anymore. I don't, it's good to make money, and I'm still making a little money. I'm hoping to make some money in the future playing the trombone, but I want to play like I used to play. I want to just pick up the horn and be able to start blowing and have fun and do it at a high level to where everybody's going, yeah, that sounds great. I sit next to players now, even going through this. There's a year or two ago, a player next to me knew everything I was going through, and so I'm playing along and I'm thinking, God, does this sound any good? Is this okay? What's going? Is this? And he goes, actually, we played for about half an hour. He goes, hey man, you sound like you always sounded. That was great. I'm thinking, really? I felt like shit. I felt awful. I felt self-conscious. I felt unconfident. I felt like nothing was really great. I felt like I was just getting through it. You know what I mean? But I fooled the guy next to me, and I don't know. So I don't know how many people I'm fooling, and I don't know how many people I'm not fooling. So, but in my mind, I'm thinking, man, I'm playing at a level that's maybe 75% of what I used to be now, and that's after getting some improvement. And so I'm just I'm just keeping at it, keeping at it, keeping at it. And the more I do, the better I feel about it. And there was a player that called me and said, "Oh yeah, this player's going through this. Can you talk to him?" And so I talked to the guy, and he was having, I think, bigger problems than I ever had. But I said, just keep at it. And I recommended Jan to him, and I said, just keep it and don't put the horn down for a day. Just keep going. Go, 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 go. Just keep at it. Just trust that it's going to work. And trust these minuscule little improvements are going to gradually get you up, 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 up to where you're comfortable playing in front of other people. And so, yeah, it's interesting to hear the different levels of what this is, and hear other people struggling more or less than I am. Yeah, it's interesting how the dystonia thing affects different people in different ways. And maybe I caught it a little earlier than some other players, and I attacked it earlier. So maybe I'm at a little quicker upswing than other players might be. But yeah, I've seen it just destroy other players, though. Just take them out of the game completely.
It's interesting how, you mentioned that it does affect other people or anybody differently. I've heard and seen dystonia cases where their symptoms is that their muscles clamp and like over contract, and so they can't get any sound out. And then a recent guest I had on the show, his dystonia experience was a tremor, right? And some people, it's like they can't keep the note steady, right? Where everything out here might be working, but they can't keep the note steady. It's just, it's really just that misfiring of signals from the brain to the chops and to the body.
Yeah.
You mentioned also the possibility, and I don't know if this is true. This is between you and Jan and whoever, but the possibility of your breathing getting flipped or going backwards or whatever. I've heard that before, and one of the things I like to focus on the show is like, through your experience, what playing habits or other habits have you become aware of that you've had to make a conscious choice to change for the sake of your recovery?
I would just say, I haven't. I'm just trying to get back to who I was as a player, but I haven't changed anything. I wouldn't say I have gotten better habits from what my learning experience with Jan. Some of it breathing. I think I talked to you about this before we started recording, but the biggest problem I have when I'm playing is just my thought process. It used to be okay, if I'm reading something, just look at it and play it, interpret it correctly and play it, and it's done. Go on to the next tune. Like we're done. Now it's like, okay, I'm going to play that first note, and it's a C above the staff. Okay, when am I going to start breathing? Am I going to start breathing here or there? And then I want to relax before I play. Is my body relaxed? And am I going to be able to articulate that C? Am I going to, is the rest of the phrase going to go, okay, do I have enough air for the rest of the phrase? All those thoughts are going through my mind, and I'm thinking, I never thought about anything before. I literally never thought about anything. I just played. And so all those things are going through my mind. That's only some of the thoughts that are going through my mind. Other thoughts are like, oh, can the guy in front of me hear what I'm going through? Oh, is the trombone player next to me? Is he hearing that? Oh, the trumpet section are hearing that as well. So I'm thinking about all this confidence destroying thoughts that are going through my mind, as well as the technical things I'm having to think about in order to perform the stupid little phrase I'm going to try to play. And so whereas so that's the hardest thing I go through is the thought process. I used to never think about it. Now I think about all these things. I mean, a dozen thoughts go through my mind, like, okay, is my breathing together? Am I going to breathe right? Do I have too much air in my lungs? Do I have not enough air in my lungs? What else, is the articulation, should I, Todd, should I articulate harder to get the note to start, or should I back off and do a breath attack? And all these things, it's just like really aggravating thoughts to have to go through in a musical situation where you're just trying to play music and you're thinking about anything but the music. You're thinking about everything except the phrase you're going to play. You're thinking about all the technical crap I'm having to think about to try to get to play, So that the whole thought process is driving me crazy. That's the hardest thing I go through because I used to just have confidence I could play anything. So now I don't have that confidence, but I'm getting there.
There is probably no one in my audience that's gone through an injury that can't relate to what you just said. And I'm so grateful that you were willing to share that twice now to me. Because it's so true and this is why I do the show, is because it's the confidence, it's the mental game that really makes the difference in your physical recovery, in your recovery in general. One of my mentors who I just recently had on the show, who's helped me through my injury. Mine was not a dystonia issue, it was a muscular tear that was beginning to happen. And, but anyway, so he has this series on YouTube and he goes into the psychological and physical contributors to at least musculoskeletal injuries for brass musicians, especially trumpet players. And he said something that really was the catalyst that made me want to do this show. In one of those videos, he said that even if coming back from an injury, if those pedagogical things, those discrepancies that cause the injury are fixed and they are working and everything's working physically, everything's healed up physically, if the psychological work has not been done, like on the confidence, the thing, like the pressures that lead people to overplay, over practice, and get overuse injuries, if that's not taken care of, then they're going to end up back at square one again, eventually.
Yeah. Good.
It's just that important, Hey guys, I just want to interrupt the show real quick and just tell you about something I've been working on for a long time that I'm so excited to share with you. Like I've said in the past, you have the potential to make your injury become a benefit to you, an asset to you. But at the same time, I know the feeling of being lost, not knowing who to turn to, where to go, what resources to use, all sorts of things. And also how to reframe the situation, the mental skills that's needed to be able to do that. And so if you are one of those people looking for that resource, that help, that coaching, I want to tell you about something I've been working on, and that is Musician Unchained. Musician Unchained is now the newest coaching platform for musicians going through injury. It is intended to help you view your situation in a way that benefits you and make the changes in your life that you need to become the best version of yourself because of your injury. Your injury being the impetus for that change. I would love to be able to help you in any way that I can, even if that means sending you somewhere else to someone who can better help you. And so if you are interested in working together one-on-one, visit our website, musicianunchained.com/let's hang for more details. All right, let's get back to the show.
It is, yeah. Good point. There's a colleague of mine, he's a younger player, he's a phenomenal trombone player. Just phenomenal. And he swears that the word dystonia is just being overused. It's just overused. It's just lack of what do you call it? Lack of chop maintenance. And I'm going, dude, you got no idea what this is. You have no idea. Zero idea what this is. And he's full of confidence because he's a great player. I mean, the guy can play anything. He's fantastic.
Sure.
Trombone player, bass trombone player, contrabass trombone player, tuba, you name it, valve trombone, valve instruments. He's a great low brass player. You probably have heard of him by now, but he's a great player. But he's just poo-pooing the whole idea that people have dystonia. And I'm thinking, dude, you're in your 30s. You have no idea. There's people younger than you, people older than you that have dystonia, and it takes them away. It just takes your thing away. And it's sometimes overnight, sometimes a gradual decline like me. But it's odd how some people who don't have chop problems just can, not even try to understand what somebody might be going through. And that's what the case was with this person. But I just found it kind of interesting, like, man, dude, you just don't know. What you don't know, you don't know, So
yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I've seen different people. Yeah, you're talking about trumpet players. A lot of trumpet players, of course, go through injuries because it's a more precarious, pressurized thing. It's like you have the back,
right.
you have it's so easily you're pushing too hard on your chops. You got all kinds of things that you can do to your chops being a trumpet player. And yet in trombone, my biggest thing is just finding the right amount of air to put in the horn to get a resonant tone right now. I just wanted my tone to resonate, just wanted to resonate. How do I do that? And if my chops are feeling like they're all over the place, then it's not going to happen. If my air is feeling like I don't know how much air I'm using, then it's not going to happen. So I have to put all those ducks in a row before I feel like, okay, I can do this. So every time I'm working, I'm practicing at home beforehand, and I seem to get it all together before I leave the house. Leave the house, show up at the gig. Maybe I get there 45 minutes later. Maybe it's an hour and a half later, whatever it might be. Then I warm up again a little bit. All of a sudden it's gone. All the confidence I gained in my practice room at home, that confidence is gone because I'm thinking, oh, I can't get it back. Where is it? How can I find it? Let me try to get my ducks in a row again. Let me try. And then the gig starts and it's like, oh crap, I don't have my shit together yet. It was here this morning, but it's gone now. So that's another thing that another player might be able to relate to if they have this dystonia thing going on. It's like when you do get all your ducks in a row, you feel pretty good, and then all that can go away if you get away from the horn, and then you have to start all over. Even if it might just be an hour later, it could not happen for you again. So I'm still working at it, and I think live gigs are much easier on me psychologically than recording gigs. So
interesting.
Yeah,
I can see that.
Yeah, it's just the fact that you have to do things over and over again and stop and start so much in a recording situation. Excuse me. And so that's something I find easier. Like I even want to get the phone call or the email, whatever it might be. Hey, can you make this thing? It's a live gig. And I feel no pressure. Yes, I can do it. I'll be there. But if it's a recording thing, it's like, oh, I start to feel tense right away. It's like, oh man, should I take this call? Can I do this? Can I do this? Oh yeah, I can do it. I'll accept the call, and then I'll be panicking until 5 days later when that call is going to happen. I'm going to panic the whole day, all 5 days, kind of. And so that's another reason I'm speaking out, is because I don't need that stress. I don't need it. I don't want to live that stressful life. So in turning down some of those calls, that's helped me out a little bit as far as, and plus COVID, I was going through this during COVID. So the pandemic. So I wasn't, having to play a lot. But that's the thing. The more I work, the more I play, the better I feel. I get my ducks in a row faster, and I can do it because I just played a while ago. And so I feel like I can get it going easier. But pandemic really messed doubly with the dystonia because there's nowhere to play. There's nobody to play with. I can record at home and get through something and try to get a good take. That's fine, whatever. But that was another good and bad thing about having dystonia during the pandemic was I didn't play enough with people to where they knew I was going through it. But then again, it got my dystonia worse because I wasn't playing with other people, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
No, it totally does.
Yeah.
It totally does. One of the things in sports psychology is kind of the field that we have to go on in this realm right now. Musician psychology is still kind of a burgeoning field. But anyway, the one of the things that has been found in sports psychology research is that the perceived support by other people, not even just like the reception of like that actual support, whether that's just that person that's just in your corner or people like Jan giving you that informational support, just the knowledge that you have those people in your corner actually does more for you psychologically in your recovery than the actual like sitting down with Jan getting the actual support, if that makes any sense. And so one of the things I like to focus on the show is like what those support systems have looked like for you, whether or not it's, you mentioned Wayne and these other people that have gone through things. So there's that kind of empathetic thing. But what other support systems have you found that have been really helpful for you to rely on during your journey?
Well, my wife has been really supportive. She's been great. And plus my colleagues are really, really cool. For instance, Wayne has been fantastic. And I sit next to a couple of trombone players I work with a lot, Alex Isles and Charlie Morellis, Steve Holtman, Francisco Torres. Some of these, they all know what I'm going through. So I feel like they have my back, and if I fuck up, it's not going to be a big deal with them. It's not going to be like, oh man, they're just, hey man, cool. And plus, they're helpful on the gig. If my confidence is in the gutter, I can say, Charlie, play this note for me. Something as simple as a D in the
There you
staff.
go.
Like, play this note for me. Oh yeah, no problem. Bow. He's got it. Oh, thank you so much. Oh, no problem. So all these guys have covered for me on gigs in certain ways where I can just play this phrase for me. Trade my phrase with your phrase. I'm more comfortable in this register or this register. So they've all had my back, and they've really been supportive, and that's helpful. And also, it makes me comfortable showing up on a gig with any of those guys because it makes me feel at ease. And that whole thing we're talking about, confidence, lack of confidence, it gives me confidence because, okay, these guys have my back. I'm going to be able to get through this, no problem. And so then I play better. All of a sudden I can get through it, and I play way better. And so, Alan Kaplan's another one that's been totally supportive. And there's others too. They're not coming to my mind right now. But yeah, so it's been really cool. These people, but my wife is always like, "Yeah, go ahead, do the gig, go take it. Go do it. You can do it. You sound great. Whatever, blah blah blah." So she's been like, pushing me out the front door to don't be scared of it. Don't be afraid of it. Get after it. So that's been cool. And what other support system? Yeah, my parents, my brothers. Yeah, everybody.
Don't you come from a family of musicians, right?
Yeah, my dad, who just passed away, is a trumpet player.
Oh,
And
condolences.
thank you. My oldest brother's a trumpet player. My middle brother's a saxophonist, and I'm the youngest.
Oh, cool.
I'm the favorite. So.
Oh, there you go.
I always tell them that.
That's why they gave you the trombone, right?
Try this.
I don't know if I should have said that on record. I'm a trumpet player.
Well, I started on trumpet and switched to trumpet.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm curious about this freelance environment. I got the chance to see you and the Fat Band perform at this International Trumpet Guild conference in Anaheim this past May, and that's where I got connected with Wayne.
Oh, nice.
And it seems like that's a pretty tight-knit group, pretty cool hang to be with, and LA is, as I understand it, is mostly, that freelance work, the studio work, the gigs here and there. And I'm curious if you have noticed over the course of your career any changes to whether or not it's been like between the studio scene versus the jazz scene or the orchestral scene or whatever, in the perception of injury, because it seems like you've got a bunch of guys surrounding you that like they get it, they're supportive of you, they're not and these sound like genuine friends to me, like not just your bandmates but just friends. And I'm curious on the scene in general, though, if you've seen a general trend in how injury is perceived either by the contractors and we've talked a little bit about this, but if you've seen any changes over the years, because chop problems are not new, you know?
Yeah, that well put. Yeah, because but when I was a younger player, I guess I didn't really notice it that much. Like some of the older players, I just thought they were aging out. But maybe they were going through some serious issues like this. Maybe they had an injury of some sort. But I thought basically they were just aging out and they were sounding more their age. But those are usually players in their 70s. I thought. There was a big joke around town like. They go, hey, how about they mentioned some great trumpet player from the past who was a studio player. What about this? Where's he now? Well, he died at, 59 of a heart attack. Oh, how about this guy? Oh, he died during his 50s. What about this guy? His 60s. He gave it up. He couldn't play anymore. But trumpet player after trumpet player after trumpet player, gone. And they say, well, how about the trombone players? Where's Lloyd Oliate and Dick Nash and George Roberts? Oh, they're at Paramount today working, and they're in their 70s or 80s. That was always the joke. Like, oh, yeah, they're working down the
So it's the trumpet players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as perception of injuries, I think a couple of the contractors I work for, they know what I'm going through, and they're very kind about it. They'll give me a heads up on a gig, and you're gonna be up for this. Is this okay for you? And we want you on it, and I'll let them know how I'm feeling as far as this, and that's been nice. Because usually if word gets to the contractor, you're done. That's just see you later on.
Well, yeah, that's what we were talking about before. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's some sympathetic folks out there, and Yeah, and there's also a situation where I feel like I didn't play my best. A while back, I was on a gig and it was an orchestra. It's always like they always start the day not the best way for me. I don't want them to change their ways, but it's not the best way for me to start the day. They go, okay, let's play this cue. This is a cue. It's an orchestra, and as soon as we play it once, they go, okay, let's hear the woodwinds. So now I'm sweating, right? Because I know eventually they're going to get to the trombones, and nerves are happening. My palms are getting sweaty. I'm worried about this easy phrase I'm going to have to play, because easier the music, sometimes the worst it is for me to play. If I can play something difficult, that's fine. It's easy, fast, whatever. But something really soft and subtle is not the easiest. So I'm sweating it. So they go, woodwinds do their sound check. Then the next thing you go, let's hear the French horns. French horns, they do their sound check. Okay, now it's trombones. Now I'm freaking out, right? So all I have to do is go da 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 da. Oh, so that's all I have to play, right? And I do okay. I think I do okay on it. So I go, but I have a little shaky on the last note. I go, okay, that wasn't great, but I think I got through it. And they go, there's silence. And the conductor's a twit. This guy, he should be a junior high school band director. He's got nothing good, nothing helpful to say ever to the orchestra. He doesn't even know when the streamer's going to start on the freaking screen. He's been working with 20 years. He still doesn't know when the streamer's going to start. When the streamer goes across the screen like this, and then you start right now. And so he can't get that. He can't get it. And he's like, so he goes, okay, well, let's hear the trombones again. After 10 seconds of silence, let's hear the trombones again. We played it again. Silence. So now I'm really freaking out. Now I'm like, everybody knows. Everybody knows that everybody's pointing the spotlight on me is the problem. So then they go, okay, let's hear one more time without the tuba with them. Let's hear just three trombones. We play it again. Silence again. And I'm like, oh, fuck. So then they move on to the trumpets and the rest of the orchestra. We play the cue. The rest of the day goes fine. It's only, we only had a short little session. But then I'm thinking, I'm never going to take this call again. And I'm not. When that contractor calls me for that gig, I'm going to say, absolutely not. Thank you, but no thank you. Just because the conductor is a twit. He doesn't have anything nice to say. It doesn't, he's not helpful. I just, certain situations like that just aggravate me, so I don't need it anymore. So that's one.
Well, true, yeah. Well, it's interesting. The research that's coming out about dystonia is that, there's this whole line of pedagogy called, well, I don't know if it's necessarily called, yeah, I think it's called pedagogy. It's just trauma-aware pedagogy, trauma-based teaching or whatever. And the relationship between the conductor, the contract, these positions of authority and the musician turns out to be a really big factor. I don't have specific data points, but it's just that, like you said, it's just that confidence that we get inside our heads, and that there's usually an impetus for that, a stimulus, I should say. And it really, really does a number on our brains as far as our ability to execute on otherwise what we've been able to do. And that's kind of what can lead to dystonia and other mental health issues can factor into that and things like that. So it's totally common, and yeah, you don't need to deal with that. Hey guys, hope you're enjoying the show. I just wanted to jump in here real quick and tell you about something that I'm really, really excited about. For a while now, I have wanted to create an even more effective resource than just the podcast that injured musicians can go to receive the support that they need. And recently I did just that. So write this down. Trust the Process Podcast Injured Musician Support Group. I know it's a long title. We're still working on that part. But this is a place where people can go now, injured musicians and even musicians who have gone through injury in the past, and people that help musicians go through injury, where they can go to receive the support that they need, whether that be ask questions, share their victories, share their frustrations, and overall just receive the community and the support that they need in a very proactive, intentional way. And so I just ask that you guys support these injured musicians by sharing this group with them, that they can receive the support that they need. Okay, enjoy the rest of the show.
I was thinking that orchestral players go through this more than I do, I'm sure. People like me. I'm a freelancer. I play orchestral music, but I don't play necessarily all the time in an orchestra. Like people play with the same players or the same conductor with the same people all the time, and it must be uh, a very awkward situation when you have a chop issue and you're working with the same players all the time, and the conductor, can be gunning for you, whatever. So
It's interesting. I've had a lot of, or not a lot, but a fair amount of full-time orchestral musicians, like full-time employed orchestral musicians, and it's really interesting to hear them talk about their stories with injury because they're in a different situation from an employment standpoint. And I was picking Wayne's brain about this, but with an orchestra, they have, I guess it would be whatever an orchestral equivalent to PTO is, or sick leave probably would be the
oh, paid time off. Okay. Yeah, they probably
paid time off and sick leave would probably be the category it would fall under, and different things. But freelancers, there's not as much stability, and I think that's what leads to a lot of people to push themselves past what is healthy for them just to save their gig. And that's the thing. If I could wave my magic wand and get rid of that, I would, because what I've had to learn, because I pushed myself. I mean, I wasn't a freelance musician full time, but I was a college student and I had those external pressures going on that led me to push myself too far. And it's just really important to put health first,
Yeah,
put yourself first.
definitely, definitely. That's another reason I'm not, I'm not sad about working less and turning down calls, because I got to look after my health. I went through a cancer thing 2 years ago, so I have to
Oh,
look after my health. Yeah, I recovered fully, but it's all fine now. But one thing after another. When I was 57, I detached my retina, so now my vision sucks. It's really, my vision is awful, and so, but that kind of is when the whole dystonia thing started, you know, and then it was after that, all of a sudden I'm having child problems, and I'm thinking, what is this? Is this related to my eyesight problems? And then after that, I get diagnosed with prostate cancer, and then my family history of prostate cancer. So all my uncles, my dad, everybody in the family. But I was the first one out of my brothers to have it, and so hopefully
oh,
they can avoid it. But so I went through a lot of treatment 2 years ago, 2022, and I was spent most of the year going back and forth to the doctor, but getting appointments and stuff like that, and got treatment in September and October of 2022 at Proton Radiation, California Protons in San Diego. So my wife and I had to live there for 6 weeks and then commute on the weekends back up home. And so it's been a whole series of in your comment, health comes first is what brought this on. It's like, yeah, health comes first. So gigs aren't a big deal to me anymore. It's like, who cares? Like, I mean, I want to make a living, and I want to provide for my family. But sure, health is first. The very first thing. You don't have any of that if you don't have your health. So you're not going to have gigs if you don't have your health. You're not going to have an income if you don't have your health. So all that being said, that is the most important thing. Is just live a healthy lifestyle. Keep going. Try to keep all the demons away as far as health demons. And I made it to 64 so far, so doing okay.
you're doing great, man. The man, I'm so glad you said that, because one of the biggest reasons why musicians push themselves too far is because it's their instruments, their identity. And we
Very
talk
true.
about this all the time.
Yeah.
And it's what you do. You and I, we blow raspberries into a piece of plumbing, and somehow people pay us for it. And I don't, music is a wonderful and beautiful thing, and it's part of our expression, but it's an extension of us, not us.
Yeah.
And
That's very
so I'm one of. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
on that, yeah. Because that's a big part of what I'm going through too. Not only the issues of not playing as well as I used to, is the issues of, that's my identity. And when I think about retiring and just quitting, I never thought I'd ever stop playing. I never thought. But now I'm thinking I might just not just put it in the closet and say no and move on with my life. But then again, it's my identity. When people hear my name, what do they know? Oh, he's that trombone player. He's that guy. He's that guy. He plays in the Fat Band. He did this. He made records. He improvises. He does this. And he turned into a studio player, and he reached the top of the mountain, And so that is my identity, and that's the toughest thing to let go. But I have been able to slowly realize that, okay, maybe it's not that important. Maybe that shouldn't be what I'm concerned about. I have a legacy. I've earned it, and maybe if I, what
I'll say.
I've really admired a guy named Johan Racy, just from what he did. He had this great career in the studios. He was a fantastic classical trumpet player and commercial trumpet player. Sat in orchestras. He had polio, so he couldn't walk. He was in a wheelchair, but he was this beautiful trumpet player. He's the one that played this trumpet solo in the movie Chinatown. And but he said, when I'm 60, my 60th birthday, I'm putting the trumpet in the case and putting it in the closet, never going to play again. He taught for the rest of his life. He taught other trumpet players and was a great teacher, fantastic teacher. But he said, I'm done at 60. And I have to admire that, because that takes a lot of balls. He's at the top of the business. He's making a bunch of money. He's playing on all the top film calls in town as a staff musician. And so he had the business by the balls. He had it. He got it. He was there. And he just said, next man up. And so that's very admirable. And I don't know anybody before or since who's ever done that. I don't know. I haven't heard of anybody to do that. Just say, when I turn 60, I'm done. Well, I'm thinking of when I'm 65, I might do that. I'm thinking of it. Just say, you know what? I'm stopping to take call. I might play some jazz gigs for fun, play some free rehearsals for fun, do that for fun. But maybe next man up is the way I should look at it. And so my legacy has already been established. So I think I've lived a great musical life, and I wish it could continue longer, but it's not going to. If I'm not going to play as well as I want to play, I'm just going to say enough. I've tried to recover from this dystonia for a while. I've reached a certain level. Am I going to get further? Maybe a little further. Am I going to get to where I was? I doubt it. And if I can't, maybe I'll just say, that's it. Next man up. And so it already is kind of that way anyway, since I turned down so many calls, and the younger guys are working now. That's fine. But yeah, I admire guys like Dick Nash, who can work into his 80s and still play great and still take all those calls. Charlie Loper, freaking awesome lead trombone player. Just, I think, the best lead trombone player I've ever worked with.
One of the greatest, yeah.
Yeah, and so he made it. He was worried about gigs when he was 88 years old, and he's worried about not being on a gig. And I'm thinking, I don't want to be that guy. I want to be him in the peak of his career, but I don't want to be that guy worried about a gig when I'm 80 something. Forget that, Come on. So there's certain people that can't let it go, and I'm being forced to let it go, but I'm fine with it. I've become fine with it. I wasn't fine with it, but I'm becoming fine with it.
Yeah.
If that's good advice for somebody listening in, I want to play, and I can still play as well as almost everybody else. I used to play better than everybody else, but now I can keep up with the Joneses, kinda. But I still want to play, and I still want to work. But I'm fine if it doesn't happen. So it's okay.
That's an interesting journey to come to. I remember, I'll never forget the day that I'm a guy who is a very spiritual person. I have my faith and everything. But I remember the day when I felt like, I'm 2 years into my recovery, over 2 years now. And it's like getting to that point where if that fork in the road comes, well, it's already come, but if I decided to take that path of, not coming back to a professional level, but doing it how I still can,
mm-hmm.
and being okay with that, that's a very amazing, it's just like it's a I don't know, it's just a beautiful place to be mentally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because then you're coming back because you want to,
mm-hmm.
if you choose to, if you do choose to, not because, you have that anxiety of like, I got to come back because of this gig or that gig or whatever external pressure may be there. Right. And also what you said reminds me of something that Wayne said. I can't remember who told him this, but it's something that's helped me a lot as well. As somebody told him to not expect for it to feel the exact same way it did before his injury, because not only is he a different person mentally, but he's also a different person physically, with everything he's gone through. And I'm not trying to compare his situation to anybody, but I think that's a pretty good rule of thumb, is that it's not always going to feel the same way it did before.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm convinced that's correct, because I don't think I'll ever feel like I did before, but I am getting better. Yeah. And Wayne continues to improve. He's amazing. He's freaking amazing how and especially doing what he does with the physical
Right.
demands of playing that accurate and that clean and that register, and having people demand that of you all the time because you are that guy. So, we got to get Wayne because this is a soaring high note thing. And so he's got to be the guy to do it. And to be able to keep his chops up, to be able to do that, it's uncanny. It's very admirable, because I'm trying just to be able to play pretty good. And he's playing great.
Well, but that the comparison, I guess that's not necessarily where I meant to take that, but just the fact that, I guess, the self comparison of you before your injury and you after your injury, it kind of goes back to that thing of if you don't take care of the psychological side, you may end up back at square one of an injury.
Yeah, exactly.
And every injury is different. I'm not saying that, dystonia in and of itself, there's just so many intricacies and everything, even especially from a muscle tear or whatever. But I kind of want to change gears here on a more positive. Well, it's all been positive, but one of the things I love focusing on with this show is what have been some of the unforeseen blessings or benefits that you've seen come from this experience.
Enjoyment of being at home and being able to relax a little more and watch some shows I wouldn't have watched had I been working so much, because I really was a workaholic. I mean, I worked all the time. And I loved it. It was great.
Can't imagine why a musician would be a workaholic.
Right? And so I wonder how, the studio players could play, 6 hours a day or 8 hours a day. And then I got to be that guy where I'm getting called to play from 10 to 5 and then go play a show at night. So I'm working from 10 in the morning till 11 in the evening. And what's the effect on the chops? But you just grow into that endurance and that ability to adapt in every musical situation. But yeah, so some of the benefits has just been relaxation, enjoying time with my wife, going on more trips. And that's another incentive to maybe, hey, not working isn't so bad. It's like I can go on trips. We're in the process of building a house in Mexico, my wife and I. And so we're going to.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah. So we're having a house made now. Should be done within the next year or so. And so we're going to be there a lot of the time. So I don't have to worry about work when I'm down there. Other benefits are we got a puppy and she's great. And we're going to get her trained. And that's costing a fortune to get her trained. Costing like $8,000 for a 40-day training program.
Yikes.
Yeah. But she's an Australian Shepherd and she's really, really smart and really playful, but just out of control. Every time we take her on a walk, she's barking at people, trying to, jump at them and jumping at motorcycles and bicyclists and doing all this crazy stuff. So anyway, part of the enjoyment is watching our puppy grow and taking walks with my wife around the neighborhood and doing stuff like that, just relaxing with family, going to visit her parents in Mexico, going to visit my parents in Southern California here. Yeah, hanging out with my kids once in a while. So there's benefits, Yeah.
Well, and that's what I love to ask, because one of the benefits I feel like every musician going through an injury hopefully can get to is just the awareness of what they have and that presence that brings. Because, if you're all you're focusing on is that next gig, rehearsing for that next gig, or being in the studio in that basically that just that next thing, that screeching halt that sometimes an injury can bring to your career or to your playing can bring that break that can really help you appreciate what you got and what other things you can invest in that'll ultimately bring a better version of yourself to the instrument when you come back to it, you know?
Yeah. No, that's a great point. Clark, that's a great point. And another thing I can add to that is like, I notice myself doing this. It's like I wake up in the morning, and now I have a dog that gets me up before 7 every morning. And I didn't sometimes. I used to live a little schedule where I get up early if I'm working. I'd sleep in if I wasn't. So I could wake up at any time of the day. Could be 6, it could be 10. But somewhere in there, I'd be waking up, and my day would just be what it was. Each day was different. But now I wake up at a certain time and take my dog outside, and I actually take time to look around and look at the mountain that's near my house, and I look at the sky and how blue it is, and in the trees, and the leaves are changing colors, and all those things. I would just be in my car racing to the gig before. Now I'm kind of enjoying the small things, like, oh, isn't it? God, the air is fresh today. This is great. Such a clear. The wind took all the pollution out of the air, and this is really a beautiful day. And so I'm really noticing those things kind of more, which is good. I think it's a good headspace to be in, where you can enjoy something without it being work related, and yeah, I'm coming to grips with everything in a nice way. I think, finally, just staying healthy, like you talked about, and appreciating the small things.
Absolutely. It's, gosh, it blows my mind every time I talk to somebody about this, how it's just changed their worldview. For me, my muscle injury was like maybe that big, right? But when you're playing in a pea shooter, you feel it, and it rocks your world a little bit. And it's just interesting how something so small can allow you to appreciate,
Did
what
you
you got.
did you rest to get over it? What'd you do? Just rest and let the muscle heal on its own?
Yeah, I mean, it's been quite the journey. I tried to, well, I took some time off, and took about a couple months off originally, and then tried to come back, and some other issues presented itself, and that's been the thing. It's been more of a psychological mind and body thing I've been working through since then. But I've taken 6 months off at one point, and right now I'm just working on building back. But the thing that I've just learned is that if I can get to the point where, for me now, and I don't think I've said this on the podcast yet, but for me now, where I'm at is the trumpet has become a personal goal to come back instead of a professional goal.
Mhm.
And if a professional goal comes, great.
Cool.
So yeah, that's where we're at with that. Well, first of all, Andy, thank you so much for your time today. I'm so grateful for you and everything you've being willing to share. I think there's going to be a lot of trombone players and other musicians that'll be really grateful for it.
Oh, thank you, Clark. I appreciate you having me on your podcast here. Thank you.
Yeah. So I love my favorite 2 questions to ask are at the end of the show, not because it's the end of the interview, but just because I feel like they're most impactful. And the first one is, podcasts are the way that I actually was able to get help for my injury originally. Just from another trumpet player who had a podcast, who had a guy who was on it that had gone through an injury. I reached out to him, etc. So if somebody were to come up to you and said, "Hey, Andy, I heard you on Trust the Process with Clark, and I'm going through an injury. It doesn't have to be focal dystonia. They don't have to be a trumpet or a trombone player. But they just want to hear your 2 cents, like your advice. What would be the one piece of advice you would give them?"
That's a good one. If they're a trumpet player, I'd just say call Wayne. but but yeah, I would just seek out advice, seek out help. Don't go through it alone. Go through it with help. Go through your problems and seek out somebody who's had the same type of problem or a similar problem, and figure out different avenues in order to fix it. Figure out different ways to maneuver through the problem and come to a goal at the end. That's probably how I would say it. And if yeah, because that's what I did when I did have a problem once. I'm sorry to embellish more on this. It was when was doing
No, go for it.
I was doing the Lion King we had 6 weeks of rehearsals, and then we did 2.5 years of the show. But when we reached the end of rehearsals, and then we got about 4 weeks, we couldn't sub out for a number of weeks to start the show. Like I think the first 4 or 6 weeks or something like that. When I was 2/3 of the way through the non-subbing period, and I couldn't play anything below mezzo forte. I had to blow as hard as I could to play, and so I started calling everybody. And so I called Malcolm McNabb. What would you do if you had this problem? What would trumpet players, trombone players, Dick Nash, Bill Booth, Alex Isles, whoever I could get a hold of, I would call and see what's going on. My shop's so stiff, I don't know what to do. And I finally called my oldest brother, Stan. He goes, you know what? You just need time off. Just take 3 or 4 days off. Just don't touch the horn. Don't touch it. And so when I finally had the opportunity, I finally came to a Monday where we weren't working. I took Monday through Thursday off. I picked up my horn on Friday. I've never sounded better in my life. It was like I had all my flexibility. Everything was like just rest first. I tried to talk Wayne into doing this when he was going through some serious chop problems in the pit. He was going through all troubles in his life, and his chops were getting affected, and he had this cyst on his lip, and he was talking lanced and all this stuff. And it's like, oh my God. I said, Wayne, don't do that. Don't do it. I said, rest, just rest. And he wouldn't listen to me. Kept on attacking it, kept on practicing, kept on playing 10 hours a day, and he kept on getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And finally, I think 2 or 3 months goes by. Finally, he said, okay, let me just rest. He rested and he recovered. So that's another thing to think about, rest. So.
Absolutely. I remember. So I had the privilege of having my first trumpet teacher on the show. He's now, I think, playing euphonium instead of trumpet mostly, just because of his issues that he's had. But man, I can't tell you how many times he would tell me, just take a day off. And this is long before my injury.
Yeah.
Long before I came to these realizations and how freaky, how scary the thought of taking some time off, because, we're brass players. Somehow we've got it in our mind that if we take a day off, we're just like, our muscle memory just goes, and what's the one saying? It's like, if you take 1 day off, you'll notice. If you take 2 days off, the guy next to you will notice. Take 3 days off, the audience will notice, or something like that.
Yeah. I've heard that. Yeah.
And, it's like, I used to think that was like my, the lesson that I needed to not take any time off, but it's not the case. Weightlifters, athletes, I'm not going to use the example of weightlifters, but athletes, they take rest days. They can't do what they do. Elite athletes can't do what they do if they don't take rest days. We can follow suit.
Yeah, and you think about all the small muscles in your face and all the intricate little parts of what goes into your playing. Yeah, you got to give them a break. Got to give them a break here and there. I heard Joe Alessi.
Absolutely.
They finished their season and he takes like a month off or something. I heard. I got to follow up and find out if that's true. He just takes a month off and then he starts up his practice routine and then gets back into the grind of the Philharmonic. Yeah.
Yeah, he's actually somebody who's been through his fair share of stuff as well. I'm gonna hopefully get him on the show here soon.
Oh, great. Yeah.
But so Andy, my last question I ask, and this is the culmination of this show. It's called Trust the Process, and just the perspective question. I actually like to call it the time travel question, because if you were given the opportunity to travel back to that time of that first quiver in your sound and knowing what you know now and having experienced what you have experienced, you had the power. If you had the power at that time to take away that experience, this whole journey you've been on, what would you do?
What would I do? What would I do to alleviate the problem?
Well, would you take away this whole experience, or would you leave it?
I'd have to say I'd take it away, because I've been through enough without this problem. I mean,
sure.
I'm not crying the blues because I've had a good life, but I've been through this, the detached retina and my cancer, and some personal stuff, that I don't need to get into, but it's just, I've been through my share of stuff and I didn't need this, but I got it.
Fair enough.
It made me a stronger person, so if I want to look at it like that, I can look at it like that. I made me a stronger person, but I dealt with it. I fight it every day. I fight it. I'm not giving in. I'm not saying, oh, take me out, coach. No, I'm fighting it. I'm trying to play like I used to play, and I can accomplish that on some days, which feels great. It feels awesome. It feels like, yeah, I'm there. I'm still in the game, So, but the blunt answer to your question would be, yeah, I could live without it.
And you're not the first person who has said that on the show. It's I've done almost 50 of these interviews, and most people, they do say like, I leave it there, because that's what I would say is, just because of the journey, the lessons that I've learned. But honestly, like one of the reasons why I do this show is that if I could teach these lessons to people, like from the cultural standpoint, how you see your playing, how you see your progress, if I could teach those to people without them having to go through an injury, I'd do that, like, let's be honest here. Everything we've talked about at rest, about identity, all these things, if we could learn those things without having to go through a catastrophic injury, let's just do that. But unfortunately, that's not sometimes how life deals us the hand,
Very true, Clark. Yeah.
So, well, hey, Andy, thank you so much again for your time and for your expertise, your vulnerability, and sharing your experience. Like I said, I know this is going to help a lot of people. It's going to get out to a lot of people out there. If there's anybody who would like to reach out to you, how could they find you?
Oh, they could find me on my website, which is www.drewbone.com. My email address is on there. My phone number is probably on there too. Or they can email me. It's the same deal. drewbone@aol.com is my email address. So it's very simple to find me. Drew Bone, like Andrew and trombone. It's actually up there on the wall right there.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah. My wife.
That's some good branding you got in your shot.
My wife designed this whole studio, so she's got my mementos on this side, which is my CDs and mementos from.
Oh, there you go.
So it's pretty cool. She went all out, so she likes me.
Awesome.
Which is good.
That's good. That helps.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks for joining us. If you want to drop me a text, you'll have that link in the show notes. I would love to hear from you, what you thought of this conversation and where you're listening from, what your experience has been. I'd love to hear from you. And if you want to support the show, there's also that opportunity to help get this to more people and get more people on the show. We love to get that going as well. And so, like I always say, keep on keeping on, guys, and keep trusting the process. Until next time. Hey, thanks for tuning into this episode of Trust the Process, the official podcast of Musician Unchained, the newest coaching program dedicated to helping musicians navigate and overcome injury. But before you go, I have a few quick ways you can stay connected and support our growing community. First of all, I'd love to hear from you. Shoot me a text with the link below and share your thoughts, questions, or just say hi. You can also check the show out on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We also would love to see you in our Facebook support group, Trust the Process Podcast Injured Musician Support Group. If you found value in today's episode, consider making a donation to support our mission of empowering musicians worldwide. Every contribution helps us create more content and resources for you, so visit link number 2 below to support the mission. If you decide to donate, I'll send you my newest resource, the Injured Musician Toolkit, which is an ebook designed to give you tools to help you get through your injury. Subscribe to our newsletter to get exclusive insights, tips, sneak previews of episodes, and announcements straight to your inbox. Act now and I will send you a free gift. So sign up at www.musicianunchained.com/newsletter. And if you or someone you know would like to go deeper with me in the topics of injury and mindset, head over back to musicianunchained.com and check out the Let's Hang tab. As always, I want to thank Daniel Baldwin, my audio engineer, and my sister Dana Lovell for her help with the promotional materials. There is no podcast without them. But before I go, I want to tell you how much I deeply appreciate your time and support. You are not alone on this journey. There are musicians and educators out there who need this resource, and we need to get it to them. Together, we are breaking the chain of old habits and thought patterns that don't serve us anymore, and unchaining the potential within ourselves to face each challenge with strength and resilience. So, as I always say, keep on keeping on and keep trusting the process. Until next time.